Alright, peeps. Now, obviously, it's been some time since I made a vlog, whatever you want to call it, and a lot of shit has happened. So, without further ado, shall we? Let's tackle this chronologically and go back to week fuck knows when of lockdown. This is when the slogan changed from stay at home and stay safe to stay alert. Stay the fuck alert, people. People were so alert, in fact, they managed to spot Dominic Cummings making an unnecessary journey to have his fucking eyes tested or some shit, I don't know. What I do know is that the media was so appalled by Mr. Cummings' lack of social distancing that they themselves seemed to completely forget social distancing to get answers as to why Mr. Cummings forgot about social distancing. It's a real fucking shit show. This caused uproar, and there's a lot of opinions on the government's performance and response to this pandemic. It's tricky to look at anything objectively when politics and emotions are heavily involved, especially if we're trying to measure success without a comparative or control group or producing repeatable, predictable results and data. It's an inexact science, and our opinions will always be skewed by bias. The biggest mistake Boris has made, in my opinion, is assuming both the British public and his ministers had something between their fucking ears, because clearly they fucking don't. The House of Commons, house of lack of common fucking sense, more like. Some say, with the glorious benefit of hindsight, that we should have locked down incoming flights sooner. Some people suggested this at the time, but they were shut down and labelled bigoted racists and instead encouraged to hug a Chinese person to prove how progressive they are and repent for their sinful views. That worked out well, didn't it? Those same people who insisted avoiding Chinese people was racist are now the ones having a pop at people for not social distancing. You couldn't write it. Talking of racism, careful! We've once again seen the rise of the Black Lives Matter movement following the tragic, untimely murder of George Floyd by a white police officer and all-around cunt, Derek Chauvin. So, before we go any further, I want to point out that I hope anyone with any fucking common sense, fully supports the sentiment behind Black Lives Matter in terms of actually making sure people of colour have equal opportunities and aren't discriminated against. It makes me incredibly sad to think that some of my friends and family may face challenges in life that I don't due to nothing other than the colour of their skin. As a mixed race person myself, being white in the winter and bright fucking red in the summer, I can somewhat empathise as I get discriminated against by the fucking sun. I joke, of course. I appreciate that sunburn is very much a privileged issue, a first world problem that isn't of huge hindrance in a country as damp as fucking England, to be fair. And more importantly, I don't intend to make light of the genuinely damaging discrimination and obstacles people of colour face. Only my own, because they are, after all, fucking pathetic. Obviously, however, when it comes to political movements and opinions of people on the internet, all forms of discrimination and oppression can be solved with a fucking meme. No prizes for guessing which demographic it is boiling my piss on this issue at the moment, because it sure as hell ain't black people. Yep, you got it. White middle-class liberals, all out to prove that they are the least racist progressives and with a mission to out the racists who question any dynamic of the movement whatsoever. Allow me to provide an example. I was reluctant to attend the protests locally for BLM due to COVID-19 and other factors. I thought I'd make a contribution financially instead because, you know, I'm a moral compass for this uneducated, bigoted world. I was somewhat taken aback, however, when I read the mission statement on the BLM UK GoFundMe page that at the top of their priorities in order to enrich lives of people of colour is to dismantle capitalism. I'm sorry, what? That has nothing to do with racism. Capitalism is the free market of ideas and economics that allows people who are in poverty to escape it by using their initiative, skills and hard work, making us responsible for our own finances privately rather than allowing the state establishment to control the economy and produce some sort of false equity. Capitalism is what provides people the opportunity to get out of these situations. What your suggestion is communism. You take away those opportunities and benefits capitalism provides, and it certainly doesn't help black people, or anybody for that matter, unless you're already an elitist. You know, the people who you were supposed to despise and want to wrestle power from, you're fucking giving it to them, you cockwombles. A part of me begins to wonder if there's a political force behind all of this, and it's using a commendable and virtuous cause to push the political agenda that has very little to do with saving black lives and more to do with postmodernism, division, and building contempt between groups. We saw a similar tactic with Greta Thunberg used as a spokesperson for climate change. A 16-year-old kid with Asperger's is almost beyond criticism, as that criticism can be labelled easily as hate or attacking an easy target. It's okay for her to throw a political tantrum at a UN climate meeting, but you dare question the validity of her claims or why she didn't offer any solutions, and you're condemned as a fucking monster. The same thing's happening here, only George Floyd is the martyr rather than climate change, and BLM are the face of the political push rather than Greta. So for goodness sake, do not question BLM on the internet, you fucking racist. I sat and discussed the wording of the GoFundMe page with my pal of Nigerian descent in a perfectly sensible, intelligent manner where we exchanged ideas, agreed that this isn't what BLM is supposed to be about or should represent, and, well, got on with our lives. I went to the internet, however, and asked the very same question regarding the dismantlement of capitalism, and oh my god, what a different conversation that turned out to be. All I received from my white liberal friends was a list of insults, usually along the lines of, well done for outing yourself as a racist. Well, whilst we're congratulating each other, well done for outing yourself as idiotic robots who can't think with any depth, scrutiny or critique and just grab an ideology and cling to it for dear fucking life in a desperate attempt to seem virtuous. Fucking phone. Sorry about that. They say the early bird catches the worm, but actually the early bird just gets interrupted by their alarm that was supposed to wake them up in the morning whilst they're trying to record shit. Where was I? Oh yeah, outing myself as a racist and being congratulated for it by the left. Well, whilst we're congratulating each other, well done for outing yourselves as idiotic robots who can't think with any depth, scrutiny or critique and just grab an ideology and cling to it for fucking dear life in a desperate attempt to seem virtuous or because it's easier than thinking for yourself and risk being fucking offensive. How progressive. It's quite frightening to see the attitude and lack of individuality in young progressives these days. Everyone wants to box themselves into a group and follow a narrative, and if your thoughts or ideas conflict with those, or you even have the gall to provide statistical evidence to debunk false victimhood claims, you'll again be expected to feel ashamed for backing facts over theories because those theories are virtuous and those facts discredit those theories. In which case, even refusing to believe made up fucking nonsense makes you a racist or a bigot. Oh, I did learn something though. Apparently, sea lining is the new urban slang for trolling people by way of questioning, essentially. It's not surprising to see how they've come up with a term for people asking awkward questions that they don't really have the answers for, because so far the tactic for dealing with them has been shame, and then if shame doesn't work, avoid and block. So obviously they needed a term for, you know, people with a brain who won't believe and repeat everything they're fed, because that's how we move forward, people. Labels, groups, boxes, and expected rhetoric depending on what group you fit into. It's a fucking joke. So now, as a man making a contribution to this discussion, I'm obviously mansplaining to you, and if you're questioning any aspect of left-wing rhetoric, then you're sea lining. You're part of the problem, even if you've done fuck all wrong. Oh, but you're only part of the problem for certain issues in the world, like racism. I.e., even if you aren't a racist, unless you're actively fighting it, you're part of the fucking problem. I guess in which case, unless you're actively fighting paedophilia, I can label you a fucking nonce. They can play the old switcheroony on you as well, the left. The rules can totally flip when it suits. Like when we tragically lost all those children in the Manchester arena due to a sick Islamic terrorist attack. What were we told by our liberal friends? Not all Muslims are terrorists, and to make them feel any shame or responsibility for an action they as individuals didn't commit is racism. Okay, alright, yeah, I agree with that. Fully on board. That makes sense. However, white police officer murders black criminal in America, and apparently, if you're not fighting racism, you're part of the problem. Right, so the rules change dependent on what ethnic group I fit into, do they? You're the fucking racists. The left has become so obsessed and have gone round tying themselves in so many fucking knots whilst trying to point fingers to out anyone they can as a Nazi that they've become the fucking Nazis. You have to think this, you have to think that. Fuck off. Even black people who have questioned Black Lives Matter have been thrown under the bus and told, actually, we know what's best for you and what you should feel and what you should think, and you must feel oppressed and you must feel victimised, and if you don't, you've been brainwashed by the white male patriarchy. Fuck off. Stop telling people how to feel, how to think, and what their ethnicity, gender, or socio-economic status means to them, you patronising, self-justifying, righteous, deluded pricks. Of course, cancel culture is upon us now, so anything that could be possibly deemed offensive by anyone should be censored and never viewed. If you enjoyed laughing, then I'd make peace with not doing that so often anymore, because after all, humour is offensive. There is, for example, no ironic humour at all in recording people tearing down statues of historic slave owners on a device built by modern slaves, wearing clothes stitched by modern slaves, before relaxing with a coffee, beans picked by modern slaves. Honestly, someday a progressive liberal will look back on your hypocritical actions and deem you no better than Winston Churchill. I mean, who cares if you're offended? That doesn't make you right. I'm offended by Love Island, the Kardashians, and the X Factor, for fuck's sake. These are shows that devalue intelligence and education, instead glorifying glamorous images that 99% of us could never achieve, and therefore dumb down the population to a barely skin-deep level and leads to self-hatred and body dysmorphia, particularly in young girls, and it's fucking disgusting. You could be offended by Liverpool Football Club, for fuck's sake. Most people fucking seem to be at the moment, strutting about with their historic success, dehumanising fans of other clubs who haven't had the LFC privilege of being able to point to a trophy count during a heated debate. As a Liverpool fan myself, I'm starting to feel slightly guilty about it now that I'm awake to it. I may even take to Twitter to apologise, demand action that all football matches end in draws, and flaunt how much of a better person I am for understanding that we're all equals. Doesn't end there either. Now we're being told to believe that this is a gesture of white supremacy. I mean, it's not. Never has been, and I assume never will be unless public gullibility and outrage decides to make it one. I mean, for God's sake, this was a joke started years ago by trolls on 4chan to see if they could get the media to buy it, and they've taken the fucking bait like the unprofessional half-witted mugs half them are. Apparently, the irony of this being the universal sign for okay was lost on some journalists. So, remember, lip reading is out of the question right now for people who are deaf or hard of hearing due to face masks, and they rely heavily on hand gestures. So don't go and get half of them banned as well because you want to be an online fucking social justice activist and impress your friends, because you're actually about as woke as a grizzly bear in late December. The final call is one to end all forms of racism. Now, I'm not so sure that's a good idea. Racism can be kind of fun. Now, even though I'm not physically in the room with you, trust me, I can feel the tension, but hear me out. Now, my best mate throughout secondary school, high school if you're in America, was a lad named Dom. Here he is. Dom's half Italian, comes from a family with a committed military background, and when we left school, Dom decided that he was going to join the British Army to go and fight the war in Afghanistan, or Iran, or Iraq, or whichever country it was at the time that we were fighting while simultaneously selling weapons to them to fight back with. Anyway, a few days before he was due to go, we sat down together, had a few drinks, got drunk, and engaged in a bit of a heart to heart. I said to him, Dom, you're my best mate. If you find yourself out there in the desert, around merciless killers, back against the wall, injured, exhausted, maybe unarmed, little to no way out, you ain't gonna fucking switch sides, are ya? The point I'm making, and have been trying to make over the course of these memoirs, I suppose, is that we're all individuals and we all have individual worth. You, I, and every other motherfucker on this planet has intrinsic value, no matter where we're from, what colour our skin is, how we were brought up, our genetics, anything like that. We all have intrinsic value. When we hear the word diversity, we automatically think of skin colour, race, nationality, sexuality, and religion, thanks to the left-wing propaganda and insistence on group identities. But are we not all individuals? All of whom have our own feelings, thoughts, opinions, and actions? Shouldn't intellectual diversity quotas far trump the aspects we don't control, like our skin colour, sexuality, and nationality? How we look and our preferences, except you nonces, shouldn't define who we are or what group we belong to. The left used to preach this, and you were right. Where did it all go wrong? If you stuck around for my memoirs, I thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure having you here, and I've really enjoyed making this. If you want to see more, you know what to do. I've got loads in the pipeline. And also, if you enjoy bad gaming or sport combined with humour, head over to my sister channel, Captain Shandy Gaming, and watch me spin out on the racetrack rather than flip out on the microphone. Thanks again, people. Take it easy. Stay safe. Be kind to yourself and those around you who deserve it. Much love, the Captain.